Today is Monday, March 31st, 2025, and this is Spring Office Hours, Season 4, Episode 8, Model Context Protocol. My name is Dan Vega, Spring Developer Advocate at Broadcom, joined by my good friend and colleague, Deshaun Carter. Deshaun, how's it going?
Things are fantastic. It is a great day. It's a great time to be a Spring developer, and I've been hearing a lot about MCP.
Yeah, it's going
MCP,
around.
it seems like it's everywhere. It seems like it's the new buzzword, and all I can say, it's like it feels really, really cool. Like it feels like this is what we've been trying to get to for a while. And
Yeah.
I don't know what's next, right? Again, we're moving fast, and we're still just scratching the surface, but this feels pretty powerful, and I'm excited, very excited.
We're going to have a lot of fun talking about it, why it exists, how we can take advantage of it as Java and Spring developers. And yeah, we'll get into the weeds and talk about it. But first, how have you been? What have you been up to?
You know what? I didn't share with you. I have been really, really having a good time doing lots of travel. And one of the things that I was kind of like, it was short, it was too short, but it was like a dream. I got to go and hang out at one of the JetBrains offices for a while on
Nice.
my recent excursion with our
Awesome.
friend Marit. And man, I was just thinking about that. I saw the pictures, as I was scrolling through and making my little videos, and it was just cool. It was very, very cool experience to go and realize that there's so many people behind all the JetBrains products. First of all,
Right.
because I was just in their Amsterdam office, and it was amazing. And I was just being grateful, having a moment, being grateful. And I didn't get to share that. I didn't share that,
That's
on
awesome.
the socials, but I got to go and hang out. And I can say this: they are as cool as you think that they are. Like as cool
Yeah.
as you think that the JetBrains office is, it's that. It is all of that. It was a very cool experience.
You know this. We both are big fans of IntelliJ. I'm a big fan of JetBrains, and I'm giving a presentation to them next month. And in light of that, I got access to Junie, which is their AI-powered editor. So I've been having fun playing with that and kind of getting ready for that presentation. So
Yeah.
big fan of JetBrains.
I saw some really cool stuff with Junie while I was there.
Nice.
Very neat.
Cool. So, hey, if you're here in live stream, please go ahead and leave us a comment. Let us know where you're joining us from. My new friend, Mary Ellen Bowman, was able to meet her at Java 1, instructor extraordinaire over on LinkedIn. She has some Spring courses over there, so it was nice to meet her and talk with her. Greetings, gentlemen of the Java world. I like that.
Yeah.
Greetings from Frankfurt, Germany.
Thank you for telling us where you're joining from, because my parents are always watching and they love seeing where everybody's joining from. So if you're in the chat, stop in, say hi, and let us know where you're from.
Oh, lots of people from Germany. Weren't you just in Germany?
I was in Germany. I had a really good time. I was in Karlsruhe. I was in Stuttgart. I was in Frankfurt, and I was in Munich. I touched quite a few of the cities. It was great. I had a great time.
That's awesome. Just a reminder, this is a live stream, but we usually live stream every Monday from 1 to 2 Eastern. If you are here in the live stream, go ahead and ask your questions. We'll see if we can't ask them or answer them. And then if you are not here in the live stream, you can catch this replay on the Spring Developer YouTube channel. And we also turn this into a podcast, so you can get this wherever you get your podcasts at. Yeah, so we'll have some fun talking about MCP today. I'm trying to think what else is going on. We kind of went over the big kickstart to kind of the conference season. I know there's another big conference going on this week that we are not at. I wish I was. The Arc of AI conference.
Oh yeah, we got a lot
Lots
of
of great
over there.
speakers there and
Yeah.
friends there talking about AI. I love talking about AI. So hopefully they'll have some recordings coming out of that, because I would love to see some of those presentations.
Yeah.
Question here are, hey guys, glad to see you both again from Boston, Massachusetts. Deshaun's greetings to your parents.
My parents will appreciate that. Thank you. This is great.
Cool.
Great audience.
Yeah.
I realized, and maybe it's because of the time change, but I realized last week that this time for our friends in Europe, in Middle East, in Africa, this isn't so bad. It's right around dinner time, and I like it. And maybe it's the time zone thing why we're seeing more this week or this time of the year. But
Yeah,
anyways,
maybe.
I'm happy that everybody's here. It's good
And
times.
like we found out last week, if you can't catch us live, you can always take us on a run like our friend Jitter Ted does.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is good. So,
Cool.
Dan, this MCP stuff has really been like catching fire. It seems like everybody and their little cousin is doing stuff with MCP, and everybody seems to be
Yeah.
an expert. What's the real story here? What's going on?
Yeah, and it's caught fire real quick, right? This MCP, the Model Context Protocol, came out of Anthropic in November, and we are now at the end of March, just a few months later, and it seems to be widely adopted. At first, it was okay. This could be cool. This could be something we could use, but now it seems to be being adopted by everyone. I saw last week Sam Altman from OpenAI tweeted out that they are now supporting Model Context Protocol. I saw Google is thinking about supporting that too. So I think this has gone from kind of a new cool thing to like assess to okay, this is now we're in the adopt phase. Like you can start adopting this because I don't think it's going anywhere. It's going to be pretty popular. And so I thought a good place to start. I know for our friends on the podcast, this may not be great, but we'll try our best to kind of describe what we're showing here. But I put together some graphics for an introduction to Model Context Protocol, just so we can kind of talk through like why do we need it and how can we get started with it. So I think the big thing here is we have these large language models out there, right? We're all using them, whether it's through some kind of chat interface or inner applications. But we might have started to notice that there are some limitations to these large language models, right? They're pre-trained on vast amounts of data. They have a cutoff date. So if you ask like ChatGPT, when is your knowledge cutoff date? It only has data up to a certain date. So it has no access to real-time data or real-time events. It has no access to your documents in your organization, and it has no access to your local machine. So those are some limitations of large language models. So an example of this, if you went off to Claude.ai, which is Anthropic, and you said, hey, what's the current weather? It's going to, I don't know. I don't know what that is. I don't have access to that. Now, these systems do have tools available to them. So a lot of them now can search the web. So now it can do that and kind of search the web. But that is like the product that sits on top of these models, right? When you go to Claude.ai, you're using the product that sits on top of the model Claude 3.7 Sonic, right? When you go to ChatGPT, you're using the product that sits on top of the model like GPT 4.0. So the actual models have no access to this type of information. Similarly, when you're building like your own application, so we've talked a lot about Spring AI on this podcast before. You're building your own application and you're talking to a model. It has no access to these types of tools. Like, give me the current weather. What is a list of conferences coming up? How do I integrate with GitHub? How do I integrate with Slack? You have no access to do that. So we've kind of seen a trend before Model Context Protocol, which was like, okay, in my AI application, so in Spring AI, I'm going to give it access to tools. So we have support for this in Spring AI to say like, hey, if you need access to the current weather, I've written a function that does this, right? And this started to get messy because now we're like re-implementing this type of thing in every application in our organization, and people are defining these types of integrations over and over and over again. So MCP came along from Anthropic, and again, it's not just for Anthropic, and said, what if we kind of created a protocol for this, a way for a client to talk to a server? So the protocol is, hey, we're going to define this standard, and they say it on their documentation, similar to like USB-C, right? Imagine a world without USB-C, and every device that you bought had a different connector. And we've been there before, right? All these different, we had Lightning, USB-C, USB. Like that was really a big pain in the butt, right? Now I have to carry all these different adapters to connect to all these different things. I don't want to do that. I want like a single type of adapter. And that's really what the MCP protocol is. It's a way that we define our clients and servers so that we can talk to all of these different tools. Like, hey, I want to talk to some web API. I want to talk to some database. I want to do a web search. I want to go on my local machine and get some personal documents. So MCP is the protocol that does that. And finally, like, okay, there's a protocol. How does it work? Well, there's a client and there's a server. So clients could be things like Claude Desktop, Claude Code, which is like you can run right inside your terminal. There are all these new AI editing applications out there like Cursor, Windsurf, now Junie, which we were just talking about. Those would be clients. And then somebody defines a server. Hey, here's a file system MCP server. If you want access to your local file system, just plug this into your client. You don't need to rewrite this. Like there's one out there to do this already. And that's what I'm finding like the most helpful is because like there are all the things I want to do on my like local machine or talk to some API, but I don't want to go reinvent the wheel, right? I just want to like plug in this file system MCP server, and now I have access to the files on my machine. I could say, hey, how many images do I have in my documents folder? And so like there are a lot of use cases for that, and there are a lot of servers out there already, and you can kind of write your own servers. But that's kind of the gist of it. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Uh, yeah, this is where we are. I still am amazed by the by how fast the MCP server ecosystem has grown. It seems like there's a handful of different collections, right? Sites that have kind of collected these different MCP servers for all this different functionality. One of the things when I started streaming, one of the things that I thought was really interesting because I have all of these servers and everybody's always asking like, hey, like, what are you doing on this Raspberry Pi? What are you doing? How are you setting up your clusters? One of the recent ones that caught my eye was there's this Kubernetes server that allows me to basically use a natural language to interface with these Kubernetes clusters. So for me, that's kind of really cool. I am limiting it to the read-only operations, but as you can imagine, in a stream, I could have somebody chatting with my infrastructure saying like, how many Kubernetes clusters is Deshaun running in region 1? How many clusters in region 2? And being able to get that kind of real-time interaction with these systems that are running, and they're just connected with natural language. That is mind-blowing. That's something that I dreamed of years ago, and now it's so much easier.
Yeah, and I think it really helps with the, like you said, starting to put these building blocks together. Like, hey, I want to build this thing, this workflow that does these different things. And so I could use a client like Cursor or Windsurf or Claude Desktop and say, okay, go do this. And now it interacts with my file system because I gave it that capability. It's able to push a commit out to Git because I gave it that access to that tool. Or I have it write a new file to my file system because it has access to that. Before that, these are all things that we could have done, but like we would have had to have built these ourselves and kind of stitched them together, which is not a lot of fun. Were you? I can't hear you. I can't hear you now. Nope. Deshaun, I cannot hear you. Sorry. So I'll keep talking until we get Deshaun back. But this is the one thing. So I'll include a lot of this in the show notes today. One of the sites that I really love is this model context protocol.io. And this includes a lot of information on like how to get started with it. Language agnostic, right? This is just talking about the protocol. And so if you go in there, you can kind of see some getting started information, like how it works. Hey, there's clients and there's servers. And then one of the things you can look in there, there's an example server section. And this is one of the lists of those different like collections of servers out there. So again, I said like the file system, we can talk to things like Git and GitHub. If you want to add like web searching capabilities or fetch to it, you can do that. And so this is just one example of like the servers that are available. There are other like lots of directories out there that kind of go through and show you what servers are available. Just checking on Deshaun. Are you there? Still can't hear you. That's all right. Cool. Can everybody hear me? I just want to make sure here in the live stream people can hear me still. If you can hear me, that'd be great. If you can hear Deshaun, let me know. Maybe it's just on my end. Yes. Okay, good. People can hear me. Can you hear Deshaun? Sounds like I'm good. Oh, and we got our good friend Corby here. Corby, how's it going? No Deshaun. All right. Cool. Good to see you, Corby. Corby's helped us out a lot with everything. So good to have you here, Corby. So this is like the example service. Now, what I want to point out here is that if you also look in here, this is a bunch of information on just kind of how to get started with it. But there are also SDKs in here. And if you look at the Java SDK, this is an MCP for writing projects that integrate with Java. So if you want to write an MCP server in Java, this is the SDK. And what I want to point out is that this project was donated and has been officially adopted by Anthropic as the official Java SDK. And this was donated by the Spring team. Now, if you're getting started with building MCP clients and servers in Spring, this is great. You go over to start.spring.io. There are starters for that. You can pick like MCP server, pull it down, and you're off and running. In fact, I've done a couple videos on my channel. If you're interested in building your own MCP server in Spring, there's a video for that. There's something you can get started with. But what I want to highlight here is that this isn't just for Spring. The official Java SDK is for Java and Spring developers. Hey, Deshaun, are you back?
I think I'm back.
You are back. Good to see you. Good to hear you.
I had some Bluetooth speaker somewhere from my trip that decided, hey, I'm going to take over. Give
Bluetooth
me all the audio.
loves to do that.
We're back.
So I was just saying, the official Java SDK was donated by the Spring team, but it's not just for Spring developers. If you want to get started with Spring, you can go to start.spring.io, pick the MCP server or client, and get started. But as we note in the documentation here, the core io.modelcontextprotocol.sdk module provides default stdio and server-side sent events that don't require external web frameworks. So you don't need Spring to get started with this. If you want to write an MCP server in Java, you can use this SDK and get up and running. In fact, I started building one this morning. If I had more time, I probably would have shared that today, but I will get an example of that out there in case you're interested, just using this with pure Java. So pretty exciting that we have the capabilities to build MCP clients and servers in Java thanks to this SDK.
Fantastic. Yeah, the SDK server client, this is really interesting, right? I feel like I don't have cloud money, right? I always get a little nervous when I'm using Claude desktop. I'm like, this, I'm tied to this, and getting to that point where I can still do everything here on my Raspberry Pis, that's the goal. And this is the SDK that allows me to do that. So it's not just building the server pieces. I can build my own interface and leverage these things the way I want for something like a chatbot during our show. Wouldn't it be cool if we could maybe have a chatbot MCP server that's interacting with our chat during the Spring office hours? This is totally possible with the technology that we have today.
Yeah, it does really start to open up a lot of possibilities, and I think the biggest one for me is when we talk. So we've talked about it on the show before, but everybody's talking about kind of AI agents this year, and I think they're it's such a broad term. I think we can kind of break this down. One thing that I've heard a lot lately is kind of the distinction between like an AI agent, where you kind of give it a task and let it just kind of go off, and try to accomplish that task however it can. That's a very non-deterministic workflow. Like we're giving it a set of tools like this and go off and try to like handle that task for us. And then there's more agentic workflows where I have like, hey, I want you to do step 1, then step 2, then step 3, then step 4. But again, here are the tools that make that available for you. So in the past, I might have written something like some type of script to do this, like go get the content of this website, search for some keywords, write a new file for, all these different things that you might do. Now you can kind of hand this off to a large language model, give it the tools to be able to do that, and let it go. So, like I said, it's been a lot of fun, just kind of opening up some possibilities here.
It has been. And we keep on saying large language models, but we've also seen a growth in small language models, SLMs, and being able to leverage them in the same way. So we can have these kind of smaller footprint workloads that are still leveraging these MCP enabled features, capabilities, and yeah, do some really, really cool things. What I'm starting to see, especially over the last month or so, since our time together at DevNexus, what I am seeing is that we are starting to hit this ramp of adoption. There was a question in chat about, hey, is this production ready? How mature is it? We've seen customers, companies, communities taking this stuff to production for a long time. And MCP has really, I think, increased the velocity at which these types of workloads and use cases are getting to production. But now what I'm seeing is the production side of these, the production concerns, the things like, how many tokens am I using? Those kind of things, but also the speed. Hey, now that we've got this really interesting UI use case, now the speed and the performance of that is starting to affect us. And we're looking at really interesting things like semantic caching for our AI use cases and when we can use them and when we can't. So the world has changed. It's moving fast, but we've kind of, maybe I'm calling it a phase 4 from my perspective of we're now into this space where the use cases that we see have a fast path to production and the production concerns are front and center because the fast adoption and the increased adoption at which these are being, taken to production, these production concerns are growing fast and furious.
Yeah, and I'd say what is your definition of production too? Because a lot of what I've been using it for is local tools. So again, this can plug into a client like Claude Desktop or something like Windsurf. So I've been kind of evaluating Windsurf, and Windsurf, this AI-powered editor where you can go in and kind of ask it things and have it look at your entire project and then make suggestions or even write code for you. You could plug in MCP servers into something like Windsurf, and now it has the ability to, hey, go out and search the web for this documentation. Like, give me the latest Spring AI documentation. So when I'm writing a Spring AI project, you have the latest documentation. You have that knowledge to kind of create the project based on the latest kind of techniques. So that's what I've been finding it for. That's what I've been using it for a lot lately.
Well, another layer to this thing, it's got tons of layers, is the metaphor that I use for these LLMs and SLMs is they are like pre-filled databases, right? They're these massive databases that come pre-populated, and the key is how do you leverage them? Different models have different strengths. They're trained against different data, and these different models have different things that you can hook them up to. I'm going to be honest and transparent. I am always looking for these typical data scientist Python-based workloads and how easy it is to deliver them with Spring AI and some custom LLM or SLM as the backend. So now with MCP, I can literally have my vision traced or vision trained model running over here. And when I say, hey, I've got a picture of my kid's room, I can use the MCP server that is, best fit for me, but then it can go out and reach out for that specific thing, analyzing the image of the kid's room. It can do that automatically because it's been given this tool to go out and do that. And it says, oh yeah, I'm going to go connect over to this server to determine whether or not this room is clean or the picture in this The room in this picture is clean. So
Right.
I'm constantly looking out for that. And because I've got all these custom trained LLMs or databases, I can do a lot of really interesting things. But I'm doing this in a multi-layered approach, right? That orchestration, that agentic workflow. It's really mind blowing at how fast things are moving.
Yeah, and like I said at the beginning, OpenAI is adopting this. So within using OpenAI, that will be able to plug into different MCP servers. It sounds like Google is going to adopt this as well. So again, this isn't. I don't think this is no longer just hype. This is something that a lot of people are adopting, and it's something that I think you should take a look at as well.
This, Rabah has a comment here. It's amazing what we can do with MCP. I saw a video of a sec making 3D models in Blender using Claude.
Yeah.
This idea, I was watching Mythic Quest, the side quest episode last night, and I was thinking, oh yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool if I could make some of these 3D, anything, 3D spaces, and that was on my mind. So yeah, it's amazing what we can do, and then with MCP, it's just going to open all the other doors.
Yep.
It's wild.
Here's another question. Can multiple MCP servers be combined, like Git plus Sonar plus security check? Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I'll give you. I was telling Deshaun kind of before the show started one of the MCP servers that I built. So I write a newsletter in something called Beehive, and I write it on their platform. But ultimately, my newsletter also lands on my personal website. So I write it in Beehive first. And then this was a very manual process before, where I would have to go in, and they didn't even have Markdown. I would have to copy the HTML, somehow convert it to Markdown, because that's what it is on my website, and then write out the file, add the Markdown, transform a video to what a video is on my website, a tweet to what a tweet is. It was a very manual process. And now with MCP servers in Claude Desktop, I have one MCP server that has access to my file system. I have the MCP server that I built for Beehive that can go get the content of that. And I say, hey, I have a new newsletter going out. I need you to add it to my website. And so it uses the file system to write a new file to where it needs to go. It extracts the content from my newsletter, transforms it into Markdown, and does all of the things that it needs to do to get it ready. So yeah, I'm using multiple MCP servers there to basically produce a workflow. And again, it's just we've been talking about this too. I've been thinking more and more about AI as another employee on my team, but I'm not going to hire somebody to do that. This employee is able to take that Markdown, transform it, write a new file out, and publish the newsletter on my website, so that I don't have to go through that manual process of doing it.
These are fantastic questions, and I want to double down on this H2O2 because of where his head's going, or where their head is going. Git and Sonar and security check. This idea of, hey, I want to keep an eye on my repositories. I want to keep an eye on what's going on in production, even if it's just a read-only access. The idea here, and then I'm going to shift over here into Adarsh's question, is hey, help me clarify the value. What is MCP providing? First of all, this whole AI abstraction is providing a natural language interface to all of these other systems. If you're running multi-cloud, you're running in AWS and in Azure, and you've got different RBAC, different setups, right? You've got different APIs you need to communicate. Wouldn't it be cool if you could just say, hey, which of my regions, which of my systems isn't secured properly? Do I have consistent security across all of my regions, all of my clouds? Being able to talk to a server to get those types of responses. All you're doing with MCP is you're giving it access to those APIs between Azure and AWS in your example, and you're able to understand with natural language what's the state of your system. Where should you focus your efforts? What should be the next thing? What's next on the priority list?
I saw Julien Dubois from Microsoft. He wrote an MCP server in Spring AI using connecting to Azure. So with natural language, he can say, hey, do we have a new environment set up? No, go ahead and set one up in this region. So it's replacing his workflow of having to go to the council and like manually do all those things. So again, yes, these are all things that like we could do manually, but now you're like putting them into a single source and being able to access all these different things to like automate these workflows.
The other piece, why I like that example from Julian, is it's interfacing with a CLI,
Mm-hmm.
right? The CLIs now become really, really powerful. The other piece, again, is I'm not real comfortable having these servers having all of the right access and making a bunch of changes for me automatically. I'm just not there yet. But giving me read access, giving me insights into actionable things, that's powerful. So in Julian's case, for my Azure CLI, I could give it a specific role and permissions so it could read all the things, but maybe not set it up. Maybe I just want to be able to get some feedback. Let me get an overview, a summary of what's going on, what's changed in my system in the last 24 hours. These are powerful, powerful things. And now I think this is kind of my new catch here is all of those CLIs that we've installed. When you do your brew, you look at all the CLIs that are installed on your laptop. Now you can provide access to all of those things safely with a simple MCP server. So that's my example. From our friend Corby here, who says never run just one MCP server. Corby gave me a really, really cool example where we can interface with one of our commercial products, the Spring Application Advisor, that is just a CLI and it does some really powerful things. So that idea that I've now opened up a bunch of these CLIs to my AI, to my natural language stuff, like, hey, I want to do this thing. I can give it that list of tools that I want to be able to leverage and I can go. That's where the value is added.
Yeah, another question here. What is the future of MCP? Will it always be STDIO or change to HTTP as well? So we already have that capability. So at least at least from Anthropic side of things, they declare a bunch of different transports. So STD was one. You can do HTTP with server-side events. And I know that the Java SDK supports that, whether you're using Spring or just Java. There's ways to do that as well. I think that's one thing that and I'll have to ask our friend Corby about this. And I was talking with Craig Walls about this last week as well. I'm just kind of getting into it. So everything that I've built has been like for a local tool using standard in and out, but I haven't gotten into like the server side of things. Like, when would I stand up a server that then is not just something local, right? That's something anybody can talk to. So I haven't got into like some use cases with that yet. So I'd be curious to know what type of applications folks are building with HTTP as well.
That's where this is all heading, is to be able to take and interface with all of the data that we have, right? All of these systems that are in place. This is another hot take. Maybe not. It's an observation. What I'm seeing in the new UIs, there was one customer that blew my mind with one of their systems that had all the insights into all of the repositories, and it was amazing. But you had to kind of know your way around the UI in order to find the information that you needed. What I'm seeing from a lot of teams is the UI that they're providing, it looks like a simple ChatGPT interface. Mm-hmm. So imagine, if you will, a future where the interface to all of your systems is just a ChatGPT type interface. Hey, I'm going to say something and I'm going to get a response back. And I always think about Star Trek and Scotty, computer, right? And doing that thing. But that we're there already. With Spring AI, we can already do the multimodal. I can already have it transcribe and I can say like, hey, computer, how many clusters do I have in region 1? And I can already, with Spring AI, I can already do that dance, whether I'm AWS or Azure or whatever my cloud is, I can already do that dance. So it's wild. We are here, but the interfaces, that my whole point was, the interfaces that I'm seeing for these complicated systems has really shifted from all the fancy widgets and buttons and having things happen automatically to this simple chat interface that's now being backed by tons of powerful tools, agents, whatever your desire.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I think people are missing in this is that, I had this conversation with a friend over the weekend too, was like, this is really just like the next iteration in an abstraction for programming, right? We started off with like assembly code, then or machine code, then we got into assembly, we got into low level programming languages, now high level programming languages, which let us write, some type of code that translates down to machine code. This is just another level of abstraction, this natural language. Now we can talk in whatever language we can talk in and have that ultimately compiled down to machine code that a machine can read. So it's just the next level of abstraction in this kind of process, or evolution of computing, if you will.
Yep, Dima makes this point like, hey, instead of API where I'm having to write a client for everything, I'm kind of defining this LLM to machine interface. Tell the LLM, describe the API however you need to, and I'm using the Spring AI's approach. Describe the API and let the LLM do it. And your interface with the LLM, it's natural language. So that's a great observation. A nice way. Everybody's, I'm included, trying to figure out like what are the patterns, what is my metaphor for how these things are working, and it's awesome. Vikram has a really good question from a security perspective. Does MCP also offer its own layer of security, or do we decorate our custom apps with our own flavor of security? Dan.
Yeah, so the protocol just defines how the client and the server kind of talk to each other, right? So MCP isn't getting in the way of how you write your applications. So if I was writing an MCP server that needed security and I was inside of Spring, I would just use Spring security inside of my application, and that would handle the security. It's not defining like how you write your own layer of security. So.
Yep. Dima says MCP latest release has OAuth out of the box. I did not know that.
Oh, I didn't either.
So that's something. Yeah. And
I did see that actually. That was very recent. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. So we can.
I'm curious how that works then. Like, do you when you're granting access to an MCP server tool, does that then say, hey, I need you to go ahead and authenticate for this,
or let me validate that token by a signed
right
authority? Yeah, that OAuth chaining, or pass through, depending on your approach.
Yeah, and I think again, this just came out in November. This is like very, very new, and this is the worst it's going to be. So it's only going to get better.
This is good, right? But this, right? MCP's having OAuth out of the box, that is worth an entire show on its own, right?
Yeah.
Because, great questions. Vikram saying like, hey, what about security? Of course, what about security? And this makes a really good, I think it'd be a good show to talk about. Let's talk about how we can secure this thing. I was saying earlier, the production level concerns are front and center. Everybody's concerned. And then here's another great security question, right? Is it a good idea to have write access for these MCP servers to be able to change data or just read only? It depends, right? For Dan's use case where he's making things and he wants to, and a simplified way of moving from data from one platform to another, fantastic, great idea. But his blast radius is really small, right? His rollback capability is really small. For me, in my production grade Raspberry Pis, I do have people and friends and their projects that are running on these things live. I don't necessarily feel comfortable just yet, but I do give production access in a read-only approach, because I do want to know like, hey, are all of these workloads accessible in each region that I have them deployed to? I do want to have that kind of insight.
Yeah, and it's important to note, if you've never kind of defined one of these MCP servers, you give it all these different tools. Like, I want to get a list of my recent newsletters, right? That is one tool. Another tool is I want to be able to write to something. So when you're interacting in this environment, like a Claude desktop, it says, oh, do you have access to get all of the presentations? Can I do that? Yes, you can. Then when it got to, hey, can I write to something? You could say, nope, I don't want you writing to it. I actually just wanted you to like get that information and present it to me. I'll determine like how I want to write this to like a database later on.
Yeah, for me, right, that whole idea, I can expose the whole API, and then based on the grants that I give it, I can say, yep, yes or no. So I've got this multiple ways of slicing this, and then especially with the new Spring security features where I can do it on the method level. This opens the door. Shout out to Frozer here. He's a fellow streamer that I've been watching a lot of. I enjoy his streams. I don't like all the
Awesome.
pickle juice, but I enjoy his streams.
That must be an inside thing.
That's a thing. He's got really good interaction on his stream,
Nice.
and like the channel points and stuff. If certain channel points are used, he's got to drink pickle juice.
Oh,
Duh.
I like
But
pickles, but I don't know if I'm drinking pickle juice.
I don't know. But he's got good ideas. I like the way he streams. He's got good interaction, and it's fun. So yeah, shout out. Thanks for stopping in. But yeah,
Cool.
the next level of abstraction is likely thoughts to code.
Ooh.
Already, I don't know how far away that is, but a lot of the demos, I'm automatically thinking, like our friend Oren, he's got this nice interaction with Tanzu's platform, right? Where you can say like, hey, I would like to create a new org. I'd like to create a new space. And let me go ahead and deploy something and let me scale some app. But he's doing it as a chat interface. And the automatic next thing is like, if I'm doing a demo, if I'm demonstrating this thing, I don't even want to do the typing because we all know how slow I type. I want to be able to just be like, hey, computer, like, can you scale this app to 100? All the way up to 11, right?
Well,
That's the interface.
you would be able to do that now. Again,
Yeah.
I interact with a lot of different chatbots, whether it's like Claude or ChatGPT, using my microphone because a lot of that time I have to like explain this long thing. It's not just build me this. It's like I would talk to you as a coworker.
Yep.
Like I would tell you everything I want to do with this.
Yep.
So I use my microphone for a lot of that stuff.
This
Yeah,
was
you could do
this was
that.
my cheat code before this explosion. My cheat code was I was using one of the text to speech ones. Why can't I think of it? Anyways, I was recording myself, like just
Yeah.
talking to the computer and explaining my thoughts, and then I would use AI to summarize it and give me the feedback. But that whole thing, that whole flow, I know ChatGPT has it, Claude has it, where I'm just for my thoughts to get my thoughts out
Yep.
to make it so that I can start. When we talk
Yep.
about like the productivity of developers, for me, it's trying to get through those initial barriers of getting started. I can hit the record button and I can just talk. And I can talk to these things, and these bots will be like, that's a great idea, or that idea is stupid. How about this? Just getting this feedback because, yeah, I am remote. I don't get to chat to you as often as I wish that I could. So, yeah,
Yeah.
these bots are kind of filling the gap and allowing me to get started faster so I can have some ideas in order before I give you a call.
I've done some silly examples with like ChatGPT using that voice mode. I show my kids like I can ask it for jokes about something, like come up with a subject, and they'll be like dogs. I'm like, tell me a funny joke about dogs, and then it tells you a joke, and the kids laugh and they're like, do it again. What's it? So
Exactly.
yeah, voice mode is great.
So yeah, it is wild. It is wild times right now. Luckily, we've got a team. I think it's led by Mark and Christian. They are doing amazing work. But there's so many people that are involved in this right now. All of our friends over at Anthropic in the community. This space for Spring ecosystem has so much adoption and contribution that it's wild. It is wild times. Sometimes I get concerned about open source and what it's going to look like in 10 years because of all the things. And then sometimes I'm just like amazed at how a community can come together and deliver so much value in such a short amount of time, but with contributions from all over the world. And this is where we are. And lucky for us,
Yeah,
that
pretty
everybody is
exciting
working so
times.
hard on this and making it so easy for us to do such amazing, cool things.
Yeah, and shout out to Christian who's done a lot of work on the MCP server stuff for the Java SDK. It's really easy to use. I showed an intro to it with Spring, and really I didn't like. I just kind of created like a static set of data that you could ask Claude about, and it was just a couple annotations. It was like, here's a tool, here's a list of tools that you have access to whatever client wants to use this, and it just pulls them in, and now you can interact with it and say, hey, tell me about this now. But again, and I think this is where people need to kind of wrap their head around. It's not just an AP, it's not just replacing an API. It is an LLM powered API, because if all I wanted to do was get a list of YouTube videos that I created, I can use the YouTube API and get that. But
Yep.
now what I'm doing is, hey, what are the last 10 videos that I've created? And now the LLM can give that back to me. And then I can say, what are the top 3 videos per count? Okay, great. What are the titles? Like, you get to have conversations with that API now instead of just an API that kind of responds to you in whatever you're asking it, right?
And now
Um,
I'm kind of like eating my own words, or eating crow or whatever you want to say. Like, um, there was a lot of times where when I was developing an API, I was like, oh, I only want these endpoints that I know I'm going to use,
right.
that the front end team is going to use. I didn't want to put out a bunch of code that was never going to be used. But now I kind of have to rethink that. Now, if I'm developing an API, now I've got to think about the consumers of that API aren't going to be just a mobile app. They're not going to
Mhm.
be just my front end developer writing a front end for it. The consumers of the APIs that I'm building today are hopefully going to be used by even more natural language processing, natural language, LLM connected, AI connected services on the other side. I've been saying for a long time that documentation has never been more important because of the way it's
Mhm.
being consumed. It's not
Yep.
just being consumed by people, it's being consumed by these bots that are going in and learning and training themselves on the documentation that you put out. So it's never been more important. But now I got to say the same thing about the APIs. The APIs that you expose are going to be consumed by not just humans, not just people writing a HTTP interface for their mobile app. They are going to
Mhm.
be consumed by many different things, and we are just getting started.
Yeah, documentation is so big, especially like as developers when we're writing code. So I've come across this a lot. Like I'm using these AI powered editors like Windsurf to say, hey, I'm just trying to like I'm doing the whole vibe coding thing. Just like, hey, write me a Spring app that does this. And I find that I have to guide it more because I know what I'm trying to build. So I'd say like, write me an app that talks to this API and returns some data. And I noticed that like it's been trained on all this data, a lot of which is using something like the REST template. And I have to go, no, 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 use the REST client that's in Spring Boot 3.2 and it'll go back and refactor it. But if we had MCP servers for like the Spring documentation,
Yep.
I can say, hey, when you have questions about what's the latest and greatest and what are the new features, here's the Spring documentation. Look through that before you kind of write any code. And I know Marcus over at Vaadin was doing this with the Vaadin
Yep.
documentation. I don't know if it's out yet. He created a Vaadin MCP server for that purpose alone. Like, I want you to have access to the latest documentation. So when you're writing code with Vaadin, you're using the latest techniques to do so.
Marcus is a machine. Like
Yeah.
his demos for years now, he has done such an amazing job of building these really, really powerful, really cool demos based on Vaadin, and I am such a fan. I got to tell him so in Atlanta a few weeks ago, but yeah, this is amazing. Yeah, it is. This is, yeah,
Cold
it's
or
hot.
cool?
All of the above. I don't know what the kids are saying. I don't know. Is it selling? Is it buying? I don't know. It's got the Riz. It's got the Riz. I think I'm using that right.
So yeah, I'm curious for anybody here on the live stream or if you're listening to the replay, like what do you think of MCP? Do you have some ideas swirling around in your head? Is there anything that you'd like to build? Is there anything that's kind of stopping you from
Yeah.
doing
Did we
so?
explain it right?
Yeah.
Right? Is it making sense? That's the key. Is it making sense? Do you realize that you can go out and build these powerful things today using Spring AI with the MCP server support?
And and I think it really just comes back to what we talked about at the beginning, the why. Just remember that these LLMs have limitations. They are trained on a certain set of data up to a certain date. They don't have access to your documentation or your up-to-date documentation. They can't get access to real-time events. Anything that you want to build that's kind of AI powered but has those limitations, this is where your head should start going. Another question here is Windsurf better than IntelliJ when it comes to code suggestions or code corrections, specifically when it comes to Java and Spring Boot? So I want to do another show on this in the future, but there are different levels of this, right? This kind of AI coding assistance. First, kind of Copilot came out, and you were in a file, and you could say, you could write a comment that says, hey, write me a recursion function to handle this. And it would do that, right? And there were kind of iterations on that over time. Now there's entire IDEs that are powered by AI, agentic workflows. So you could say, hey, build me a Spring Boot app that does this. And if you give it a little bit better of a prompt and be more specific, you can get pretty good results. And so I'll say it depends what you mean when you say IntelliJ. So if you have IntelliJ with like a Copilot plugin, that's just going to be able to kind of help write code, whether it's a block, a function, a class, etc. Junie is their answer to Windsurf and Cursor. It's the idea that the IDE has the context of the project you're in so that it can read all of those files. And it goes, okay, I see that you have a package by layer convention or package by feature, which we suggest, right? You have a package by feature convention and you want to add a new feature. I see how you've done it before. Let me take that context and write out that new feature for you. Now, I will say I've been testing Windsurf out, and as good as it is, again, it doesn't have up-to-date documentation on everything. So sometimes it just uses everything that it's been trained on. And for me, at least in a Spring context, right, I know enough to go, nope, don't do it that way, do it this way. Because the first iteration I did, it wrote it in like a package by layer, like models, views, controllers, like, no, I don't want it that way. Or I want to use Spring Modular. How do you go ahead and do that? There is a lot of guiding still, and having that fundamental knowledge is really important still. But I don't know who's going to win in that battle yet, but I'm saying they're really exciting. Those Cursor, Windsurf, Junie, all very new. Where those are going to be in a year from now, that's exciting to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Frozer says, yeah, excited to take it for a spin. Any good resources that you can point us to get more understanding? Dan's channel is always a great resource, always coming out with new stuff, but the Spring documentation is also good. There are tons of examples out there already. And yep. Dan, maybe we need to update our GitHub repository with the Spring examples.
Yeah.
And refresh that.
Yeah, if you look in the fast. Spring AI documentation, there's a section on there on MCP which points to a lot of the examples out there. And then the website we were looking at earlier, modelcontextprotocol.io, that kind of gives you all the information on MCP and then links over to the Java SDK that the Spring team donated.
Yep. I mentioned for Goose, I took that for a spin. I think actually
what I've been hearing of Goose, what is this? Is this like a Windsurf Cursor type thing?
Yep.
Gotcha.
And I don't remember what the example was, but he was doing one on stream, and I went and did an example, and it worked. Like I had great success with it for my MVP. Like, does this thing work or not? And yeah, it's worth taking for a spin. Easy to install, easy to get started.
I will say too, I'm excited to try Junie because I like Visual Studio Code. I'm more comfortable in IntelliJ, so I'm excited to like use that more. But I've also been using Claude Code. If you haven't had a chance to check out Claude Code, it is from Claude, Anthropic, to use one of Claude's models, but you use it in a terminal. So I could be in a project and I could say, look at my entire project and now add this feature. And I've found that to be pretty successful as well. So,
yeah, we have this thing, conference-driven development, commitment-driven development. Exactly. That's a great way to learn. Commit to going in and learning about it. The statement here is I volunteered for giving a 30-minute brown bag session at work about MCPs. Now I have no choice but to learn it. I recommend this for the discipline challenged folks. Hi, it's nice to meet you.
You're speaking to the choir here because Deshaun and I write abstracts for talks that we've never given before. And that is, hey, this is this thing that I want to learn more about and I want to talk about. And the best way to learn something is to present on it because you kind of got to learn it twice, right? Learn the surface level. And now I got to learn it well enough
to present it.
Talk back to someone else and teach it. So,
we used to talk a lot about this, like the career things. This little tip here from Adarsh is it's gold. Forcing yourself to go and present the things that you learn back to your team at work. This is not just a cheat code to continue learning, but also a cheat code for career development. Learning something enough that you can go and teach it, and not just teach it like, oh, hey, I know this ivory tower, I'm better. Like, teach it in a context where you can get feedback on it. Am I doing this right? This is a great career cheat code. I highly recommend, if you have the chance, do that. Take it for a spin.
Cool.
Yeah, it'll be, Ankit says, it'll be interesting to see how MCP supports security when it comes to very restrictive environments like fintech companies. I hear you loud and clear. In the past several weeks, I've been in the fintech financial services space, banks that you probably have in your wallet right now. I've been there, and they are going down this path, and faster than you might think. I'll leave it there.
And if you're thinking about that, and if we're talking about security in that kind of realm, we've talked about it on the show before, but at that point, I'm probably not using one of these major LLM providers, right? Like ChatGPT or Anthropic or Google Gemini, because no matter what MCP servers I'm plugging in, there's still an LLM component there. I'm handing one of these LLMs access to these tools, but at the end of the day, sending my information off to one of these proprietary models, right? And if security and governance is very, a big topic or concern, then I'm probably using some type of hosted model, open source model that we've kind of trained on our information, right?
Or diffused, right? And this is the other perspective that I'll share is I see when there are those concerns about giving your data, training somebody else's models, they're bringing it on-prem. They're bringing it into their data center, into their box. And what I'm seeing is nobody's using just one model, right? None of these enterprise companies are using just one model. They haven't bet on one model. They might have bet on one model to let their developers have some code assistant, code completion. They might have bet on that. But for the rest of the use cases on how they're going to interface and make add value to all the data that they have, there's more than one model at play. And there's got to be some orchestration. There's got to be some guardrails around the access that they have and where the data goes and visibility for that data from the request to the response. All of these things are really interesting.
And we've been talking to a lot of customers lately about that same thing. And that's why we have a commercial solution called AI Server, which, hey, we don't want to just allow developers access to GPT-4o because who knows what they're going to do with it. So in like costs or security, these are all concerns. So those are you asking it? Yes, we are hearing those concerns from everyone. And there are definitely solutions out there to kind of mitigate those risks.
But wow, what a great topic.
What?
I mean, it's
An hour
popular. It flies by. The questions today made all the difference. I feel like we opened up a little bit of, what's under the covers of this, how it works. And Deshaun, don't you already do something similar to MCP? Yes, I do have some of these. You probably saw one of the demos. I do. I'm using this wherever I can and trying to expose it. So you'll be seeing more of that. But this is great questions. Lots of good stuff here. And I think that the MCP OAuth conversation would make for a great show, or you doing a great show on that. There's tons of options here. Like, again, we've opened up the door to a ton of more possibilities. And
I just thought of a really great idea. We should make a Spring Office Hours MCP server that gives you access to all of our episodes. You can have a conversation with it. Hey, I want to learn more about Spring AI. Which episodes would you want to recommend for that? So that would be like a real world use case that we can kind of make available. And then you could use that with whatever client you're using, or we could just kind of put that out there. So that might be fun.
Frank says, great topic. Good idea.
Awesome. Well, keep those questions coming. Let us know if you have questions about today's topic. If we want us to kind of do a little bit of a deeper dive into anything there. And again, we'd love to hear from you. What kind of MCP servers are you interested in building? And if you get some out there, share with us. We'll share it with the community. So,
hey, Dan, what's your website? Yeah, we know how to find you on YouTube because you're super popular. What's your website though? If somebody wants
Uh,
to get access, find all your links and all your stuff, what's your website?
danvega.dev. How about
And
yours?
what about your bite-sized AI?
Yeah, bitesizedai.dev.
Awesome.
How about yours?
Awesome. Deshaun.com. There's
Oh,
not as
that's
much
easy.
cool stuff there, but
That's
Deshaun.com.
easy. There is cool stuff there.
We're having fun.
Cool.
We're having fun.
All right.
Keep up the good
Well,
work.
yeah, let us know. Again, this was a fun topic. We've had some good suggestions of topics. If you want to suggest a topic for a future episode, head over to springofficehours.io. You can see all of our archives of all the podcast episodes there, as well as a button on the navigation to suggest a topic. We read all of those, so we're definitely interested in what you want to hear from us. With that, we will most likely be back next week. I think next week is good. Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
Let's do it again next week.
I love doing this every week. Let's do it again.
All right. That sounds like a
All
plan.
right. With that, thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks for the wonderful questions, and we will see you
Absolutely.
in the next episode. Have a good one.
Take care.